All right, what is good here? It's gonna be a quick one, quick unfiltered pod because we got breaking news coming out about a couple hours ago out of New York. The New York Giants have actually done it. They've actually fired Joe Judge after 2 years, after a disastrous 2 years. 10 and I think it was 10-24. I think it is the alt record. 14 plus 10, 10 20, 10 23, 10 23. Doesn't matter. Disaster. Doesn't matter. Disaster. And I'll be honest with you. I think the New York Giants had every intention of keeping Joe Judge another year, despite David Gettleman retiring yesterday, despite all of the calls, despite all of the public pressure on Monday after it got leaked out that Joe Judge was going to stay for another year. I think there's a lot of pressure from fans, a lot of pressure from media, and again, look, media, people, they have a lot of influence. I get on them about, getting too preachy and woke and all that at times, but at the same time, the public pressure, I think Tish and Mara, Steve Tisch and John Mara caved in. They have been a disaster the last 10 years. The New York Giants for the last 10 years can be argued as being one of, if not the worst franchise in the NFL since Super Bowl 46. Since they beat Tom Brady the second time in the Super Bowl, this team has been a disaster. Okay, this team has literally went to the playoffs single time. Okay, this 10-year stretch, I can worst stretch in New York Giants history, and that includes if you know your history, of course, the Giants. This includes also late 70s, early 80s, before they got Lawrence Taylor, the Ray Perkins era and all that. Joe Pisarcik, whatever his name, how you pronounce it, Pisarcik, whatever. That era. I will argue that this era is worse. And the reason why I thought Joe Judge would have stayed, probably was going to stay the year based on the odds, was because you've seen the Giants ever since Tom Coughlin got they parted ways with Tom Coughlin back in 2015. You've seen 2 years Ben McAdoo. That was a disaster. There was a playoff here and there, but it was a disaster for the most part. He gets fired, halfway through the second year. You get 2 years of Pat Shurmur. Okay, then he's gone. He gets fired. I initially was not against Joe Judge at the time when it happened because it wasn't a retread. It was actually a guy who never had a coaching gig before. So we figured, okay, let's see where this goes. But with bad free agency picks and some questionable draft selections and all that, this team is just not going any better. And the worst part of the Giants right now, too, especially, is that even with some bad years, and even in the last 10 years, there's some bad years, there was always something positive to take away from those seasons. You can't do that this year. This year, there's nothing positive to take away at all. Daniel Jones, I don't think it's a problem. He's not a solution. Okay, the O-line is still trash. The defense is barely decent. Okay, I mean, the only reason they're even in games half the time was because the defense was actually okay at times. But they have no weapons. They just have no playmakers. Saquon Barkley's been a disaster. Can't stay healthy. And everybody. And that's another thing also too. Also, a lot of people blame the Saquon Barkley pick as a turning point, and that could be the case, honestly. But at the time they selected Saquon Barkley in the 2018 draft, I wasn't against it because I thought at the time he was the best player in the draft. I thought that Giants team in 2018 at the time was actually still on paper good enough to compete. Remember, they just came off the year before they were really bad. The year before that, they were actually a playoff team. So I figured you could build off of that. You have some guys in there. Odell at the time was still there. Beck was still there at the time. But this team right now, 10 years since Super Bowl 46, has been a disaster. And I think the Giants honestly were intent on keeping Joe Judge for another year. But I also realized too, I said it on the Football's Awesome podcast today. And I said this also, I think, last week on the podcast, on the Sunday Morning podcast. Subscribe, of course, Earthquake Podcast, on our Earthquake Podcast Network. Earthquake Media on YouTube, of course, as well, to subscribe. That even though they announced yesterday that Joe Judge will be retained of the year, I did say to everybody that I wouldn't lock that in necessarily too, because if the new GM comes in, this is after Gettleman announces retirement, the new GM comes in and demands to have his own staff, his own coaching staff. What's the situation going to do? Tell him no? At some point you need to trust the next regime in, not have not saying Joe Judge a retread, but it's going to be an uncomfortable situation for next year. So I think also too, a combination of that, and then also some of the latest firings, yesterday between Matt Nagy, who I think is not a terrible coach, will find a job somewhere else. Brian Flores, the biggest surprise of yesterday too. I think when you start seeing the some of the opportunities of guys that you can get off the streets down to possibly coach this team, I think the Giants realize, you know what? Let's take a stab here. Let's take a risk here. Personally, I would like to see Brian Flores get the job. I think it'd be a ballsy move for the Tisha Mara group to go this route. But I'd like to see that happen. Do I think it will happen? If I had to guess, I'll say no. But anything's possible. I do think that the Tisha Mara group actually listened to the fans this time. Listen to the media, listen to the fans especially, and realize that this is gonna be a disaster. We're gonna start losing season ticket holders, especially too, if you don't make a move. Joe Judge was not worth losing season ticket holders. Okay, so again, Joe Judge fired as Giants coach. Look, I don't like seeing people fired. Obviously, I'm not somebody who likes to, wish people lose their jobs. I'm not that guy. But sometimes this is the business. If you're not doing well in the business, if you're not doing well, and not only you're not doing well, you're going backwards, you have to do what you got to do. So Joe Judge fires New York Giants coach. It's the right move going forward. And we'll see what happens next, the next move they make. Obviously, I'm a big Giants fan, but I've been very disgusted with the way they've been last 10 years, especially this year. This is obviously the most this is obvious of any season that this is probably the most disengaged I've been as a fan. So it's good to see the Giants actually starting to, and Tisha Mara especially starting to actually listen now. Because I know they're a little old school, and I get that, but it might be time for them to go a little more progressive, move forward to times. You know what I'm saying? So what happens there. But Joe Judge fired by the New York Giants. Right move by the Giants. Finally, they listen to the fans, and we'll see where it goes from there. So take care.